And welcome to another episode of the Chronicles of Mr. I'm Mr. Pierre, and once again, I'm joined by the one and only Mr. Holloway Harris. So pleased to have you back here, Kevin.
Thank you for having me back. Long time no see, man. I missed you.
Yeah, same. The last time that we spoke, we were both on the same campus. You were subbing, and now this year, and I was 7th grade math and science, and now this year, I'm no longer on that same campus. And I'm hearing that you are currently in the the same room or the old room that I was in.
Yeah, we still call it Mr. Pierre's room. Like, hey, where you at? Like, Mr. Pierre's room.
I will say you'll find some stickers, places.
Oh yeah. They ask about you all the time. They're like, oh man, we thought we were gonna have Mr. Pierre, and I'm like, I am sorry to disappoint.
I'm hoping to come back that week of the Thanksgiving if I get a day or two off just to swing through, because I had those 6th grade kiddos. Like, I was planning on being their math teacher, and then things changed and I had to go to a different location, a different campus. But how has the year been for you?
It's been ups and downs. Before the year started, I signed on to be a long-term sub at the campus, but I didn't know exactly, before you actually get your assignment, sometimes you don't know what it is. You just know you're going to be at a school, and when they need assistance, you're going to step in where you're needed. And I knew that there was a big teacher shortage and even a sub shortage, but right before school started, they were like, hey, would you mind stepping into 7th grade math and science for a few weeks? I was like, I stepped into mostly last year, kindergarten. It was my first time being super long term, but doing it for middle school, I was a little bit scared because I haven't dealt with they're not adults, but they're way older than babies, so they have more opinions. They're going through hormones like crazy. So I didn't know what to expect. And, those couple weeks turned into, we're almost at month 4. And we hired somebody fantastic. It's just been a journey of trying to rediscover, how to connect with younger people and how to reach different groups of people. Also, I had to relearn some math and relearn some science. I feel like I'm always having to learn a lot. But it's refreshing.
Yeah. Cool. I think number one, you touched on it, the reality of so many teachers are needed, so many subs are needed. And that's it's difficult for good campuses and good teachers to be found to then match up for them to be on good campuses. I will say I'm grateful that the kiddos do have you, knowing that you are a person who is looking to reach young people, who cares about young people, knowing that you're with the younger kiddos, the babies, and now being with middle school kiddos where, it is a roller coaster. And something that I would tell them often is kiddos, everything that you're going through is normal, where it's there are planets that are spinning around the sun, and just wanting to let them know that, hey, I'm going to be the constant. This is the routine. This is the rationale behind it. This is why I do things, why I don't do things. And however you're feeling and how you react to that, I'm just going to be the same in that respect. And hopefully you'll learn a lot in terms of the content, the math and science, and go from there. But in my saying all of that, knowing that as the teacher, you also need support the same way that you're going to support the kiddos as they have their ups and downs. Do you feel like you're getting the things that you need in regards to support?
Yes and no. I feel like it's a complicated.
Okay.
Yes. I have great, our APs are really, really great. If I need something, I can text them, I can call them, walkie them, and they'll be there right away. The complication comes in from sometimes I'll know I need support, but I don't know how or what I need. sometimes I feel like I'm like, man, like I really could use something right here, and I'm trying to figure out what it is. So it's hard for me to articulate the support that I need. And, you know, I feel like kids from last year to this year, I feel like they're changing. So I feel like even the way that, you know, we do stuff in the classroom changes, even in terms of like classroom management, classroom discipline, you know, how I encourage the kids. That was a shock to me, you know, because my brain was on kindergarten reinforcements, like how we did that room. My brain was on, you know, my little bit of coming into your classroom or into the other middle school classrooms last year and thinking that I could pull that same stuff this year and it was going to work. But the kids, they're different. Their emotions change.
Right.
Everything's just changed, you know. I'm also learning that, like, kids are in different places when it comes to science. I may have a kid that's mega smart at science, and then in math, you know, they're at maybe like 5th or 6th grade level, and then sometimes it's vice versa. You know, you get that kid that's like, I get science, and I don't get these rocks and this mantle stuff. Like, I don't know what's going on. So, just a lot of learning.
I will say to you, as this being like your sophomore year of teaching, to give yourself some grace, knowing that, you're not always going to have the answers. And when you look back at, I'd say by the time you make it a winter break, looking at where you are and what you've done thus far, to be like, oh snap, like where I am today is not where I was when I began. And like to be content with that, but also knowing like, and knowing you, I'm sure there's like, however, that doesn't help the kiddos. If the kiddos, like you were just saying, if this kiddo has a deficiency or a gap, I want to make sure that gap gets filled. And I want to address it in all the things that a teacher ought to do. I know that you want to do it. And that's part of the battle of being a good teacher is like, man, I want to do all these things, but there's only 24 hours in the day and there's only so much that I can do. And so I'd say to you, the kids are going to be okay. If you take care of you so that you are the fullest Mr. Holloway Harris that is in front of them, then they will be okay. Because when they see that you are showing up for them, they will then show up for themselves and for you as well. And so I would say to you, to the best of how you can, it's like, don't beat yourself up too much, because then it's just a lose-lose at both ends. And I'm saying this from the space of like, knowing my stubborn younger self. I may have heard that, but I didn't really listen to it. I'm hoping that you'll listen to it and not let that feeling of like, man, I got these 5 things to do and I'm only able to, it seems like I'm only finishing one of them. That's part. So what?
Like, I feel like I do beat myself up, and like sometimes, like even with time management, I'll have like 5, 6, 7 things to do in a day, and I get really upset with myself because sometimes, like, you know, they need something more in one subject, and you're like, I spend a lot of time doing small groups and dealing with these 1 or 2 kids, like having to help them out with this. You know, I want to make sure they get it, but then you're like, I had to pull away from something after so many hours, and I want them to all know everything.
I hear you. I feel you. And to that, I would repeat again and reiterate again of how important it is to find that balance for you. Of this week, it's going to be kiddo X and kiddo Y. Like, just realistically, I'm not going to be able to get to everyone. And so I'm going to teach a lesson, but this week I'm going to really look to connect with kiddo X and kiddo Y about this specific thing, this one thing. Because if everything is a priority, then nothing's a priority. And so you gotta choose, like, look, as much as I would like to be Superman and be able to be at all places or the Flash and do all these things, I'm not. And consequently, it's the reality of focus on student X, student Y this week, next week. And so some way of your organization, for me, I'm still analog. So there are things that I'll have to like physically write down on a piece of paper or a pad to be like, have a roster, and next to it, like, maybe it's a star of like, all right, I got to this kiddo, I got to this kiddo. so that you know that you are addressing each kiddo and like no one is going to fall through the gaps, because without that sort of system, it's super easy. Like you were saying, for those kiddos who are just the high achievers, they give you those highs of like, wow, yes, I was able to teach something. And then there are the kiddos at the other spectrum who have those ginormous gaps where you're like, look, I've got to do something about this in order to reach them. And then what happens inevitably is that those kiddos who are in the middle, who are not just, they're not distractions, they're not causing a big ruckus in class, they're very chill. But if they have those gaps and we're not paying attention to them as much as the high flyers and those who, like you were talking about, behavior management and whatever, they can get sort of lost in the shuffle. And so it's super important to like have some sort of system that works for you to be able to say, I got to this kiddo, I got to this kiddo, I got to this kiddo, so that eventually you'll get to everyone. It just won't be all today or even all this week.
I need to do that because I feel like if I had like a genie, I would wish that there was like 20 of me, and one of those me's can focus on like my self-care, and then the rest is like, I got you, kid number 2, number 3, number 4, I got you. You know?
Yeah. But it's like what you were mentioning too. I'd say then also leverage the kiddos who are super excited about particular subjects or particular pieces of content, like leverage them as like mini teacher's assistants. So like you were just mentioning like the mantle and magma and the rocks for if they're really into science, then be like, hey, yo, can you create, kiddo, if this were a TikTok, a 3-minute something or another, and have them do it like on Flipgrid, explaining what the mantle is and what it means like to have those different when you're having like the different plates either pull away from each other or pushing up on each other. Create a 3-minute and then have that be like, all right, you kiddo, so you watch it and then I'm going to come back to you, have these 2 or 3 kiddos watch that same Flipgrid or whatnot, and then whatever that point is, you watch it first, make sure that they're teaching it correctly, and then from there, like, shoot it out to the other kiddos who are like, hey, watch this. This is what the essential question for today is going to be. So that by the end of class, you have this other person who's helping you along with it. And then if it's the vice versa of math, they're like, all right, we're doing scale factor, which basically is, hey, are we multiplying in order to get something larger? Are we multiplying less than 1 so it's shrinking? And then can you explain that? How is this applying in real life? What are some examples? What I love to do is use my age. Mr. Pierce is an old man, so this is what I've got. What are the young whippersnappers into nowadays? How would you present this? Or where is this applicable? And then let them run with it so that it's not just sort of all coming from you, like the sage on the stage, but rather like, hey, this is a volleyball match and all of us are going to get a chance to either set up, and then spike.
I need to do that. I'm like, where's my notepad? Like, I think I'm getting along too. I need to write stuff down. I send myself text messages through the day. I'm like, remember to print this.
Please do. I got you, bro. I got you. Because this is me knowing that someone pointed it out to me, because we're in the mix of all the things. Like this, the swirl of being in the mix of teaching. Like it's tough to like, oh snap, let me use this. Hopefully you'll have a mentor who will like, oh, you did this really well. Keep doing that. Here's a suggestion in regards to this, that, and the other. And then just, put that in your sort of like teacher back pocket to pull it out later. And then the kids will also let you know how to proceed, because what works with one cohort of kiddos may not work with another. So it's like trying to jigsaw puzzle it while you're falling out of the plane.
And I love this group too. This group, like, it's so crazy because I feel like before I got in, when I heard I was going to be in 7th grade, I was like, oh no, middle schoolers. I was like, going to be torn apart. I'm not going to last a week. And it was like difficult. It was like the learning curve. It was a learning curve essentially, because they knew me and I knew them, but we didn't really know each other. And at this point in the year, I'm like, I know I've already had like a teacher conference. I had my first parent-teacher conference. That was like, what? I feel like I actually walked away and I told my wife, I was like, I feel so much closer to these kids, and I feel like I have a better understanding of like their home life, and like a lot of their parents were like, this is what I expect out of my son, daughter, or other, and like we sit around and we try to do homework if there's time, and I'm like, oh man, like There's just so much stuff I learned from the parents.
Yeah. If you want another tip, can I give a suggestion?
Yeah, I would all of it.
This is one that I love doing, and you never know when it's going to come in handy, but knowing that you've sort of prepped for it is I would send home. What I did this year was I put generic letters, so it's the same letter to all the parents. And it says, hey, parent, you know your kiddo better than me. There's going to come a time this year where your kiddo is going to have a rough moment. I don't need to know the specifics. All I would love you to do is to write a letter to your kiddo, seal it in this envelope that I'm providing, put their name and their grade, first and last name on the envelope, so that sometime in the future, all you will have to do is say, can you please give the letter to so-and-so if they're having a rough day. I don't need to know why they're having a rough day, whatever the reason is. That's between you and the kiddo. But we all know that we have those days, and we wish, like, the person we love the most would just let us know, like, look. In that moment, I did that at the beginning of the year, and it happened twice, where the parent just texted me and said, like, can you please give the letter to my kiddo? And so one of my high flyers, we had an assessment, and he did okay. He scored like a 78. However, usually he's like high 80s, low 90s, mid 90s, whatever. So for him to score a 78, I was like, yo, what is up? And then I'd say around lunchtime, the mother texted me, said, can you please, I meant to send this sooner at the beginning of the day, but can you give the letter to my kiddo? Give the letter to the kiddo. And the kiddo doesn't know, because I sent the letter to the parent. The kiddo just knows, like, hey, my parents had this letter, so they don't know the contents of the letter. I hand it to him. He starts to read it, and then this starts bawling. And so I just put my arm around him, and I'm just like, I don't know what's going on. I don't need to know what's going on. I just want you to know that myself and whoever wrote this letter cares about you. And he's like, and then he starts telling me all the stuff that's going on. And so we have this moment where we're on the playground, and I'm just like, I'm shielding him so that he's able to have his space and feel secure and whatnot, and the other kiddos don't see what's going on. But it was just like, this is the reason. And then, well, number one, this is the reason why I'm happy that I asked the parents to write this, but then also the parents saying, thank you. Because knowing that, hey, this has already been preemptively done. Thank you for doing that. And then I was saying, no, thank you, ma'am. Like, you're the one who wrote the letter. You told me that he needed it. But that's what we are. We're a team for the success of this child, and not just the academic success, their emotional success as well, to be able to navigate, to know, like, hey, there are going to be moments. We all need that. Where my wife will see me come home and she's like, you had a rough day? I was just, yeah. And it's like, all right, come here, babe. Put your head on my shoulder and just let it all out. You're like, blah, 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 blah. So for the kids to know, like, hey, Mr. Pierre, my parents, they see me. He doesn't know specifically what I'm going through. He doesn't have all the details, but I'm also, and then when I was done with the assessment to give it to him, I was just like, the 78, I know it's not your best, but I understand why you scored the 78. He's like, yeah, there was a lot going on that day, blah, 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 blah. And I was just like, that we'll do a redo another day. And so things like that, where the parents now, it's not like this rando Mr. Harris that I talk to from time to time, but it's like, no, you see my kid, you care about my kid. In the same way, we're on the same team here. It's awesome. So I would highly recommend of like, hey parents, now that we've had a chance to meet face to face, you know who I am. Here's this thing that I'd like you to do. And you just put it in an envelope along with a second envelope. I get that from the front office, send those all home. And when that moment comes, it's just like, bada bing.
That's brilliant. Oh man.
Yeah.
I need kids to give me a letter every day when I'm Oh man.
And then the other one that I don't know if it's still there. It was blue when I was in the room, but it's the cork board. There's a main entrance, and then there's like the one that's on the same side but closer to the back. We would do that as just like little index cards of like, this is what I appreciate from so-and-so this week. Just a wall of kindness, because just for the kids to know, like, hey, it's not always just Mr. Pierre who sees you, but like your teammates see you too. You, of course, you read them through, but just like, that's another thing that we would set up to be like, yeah, look at your teammates. They're doing some wonderful things. I may not always be able to catch them, but you will. And if so, it's a pretty dope thing for them to see that and hear that from their own peers as well.
Like you said, like kindness, man. That was the word of the week, actually. Coincidentally.
Nice.
Like this week, we all had to have a talk with them, and I need to do both of those that you're suggesting. They're fantastic. Like we had to talk about the word kindness because, like, I was telling them, I was like, I had to get on a couple students because I told them, I was like, all I ever hear is tell people, shut up, or you're like, you joke around, you're like, stupid, and like stuff like that. And I said, words are so powerful, and when you say something over and over again, even as a kind of joke, that negative kind of joke, like, it becomes a personality. So not only does that person believe that they're stupid when you've joked around and said, you're stupid 100 times, you become a bully without you even knowing it, and it becomes part of your personality to call people certain names and think it's okay. We had a big talk about this week, and I had them line up in the back of the room, and like as one person walked across, someone raised their hand, and I told them, I said, say something nice, say something kind or nice about the person that just walked across the room. And then they said something, and it was kind, and then they walked across the room, and then it just followed suit. But activities like that, where it's like, I feel like our campus gets the benefit of having like 56 to 60 students max per grade. So you get to know everybody, and we really get to work as a team. So I feel like it's important to strengthen that.
Yeah, leverage that. That's dope. Of being able to. Do you only do those during advisory, or do you like have when they organically sprout up, like look to address that as well?
We do a lot of that during advisory, but this particular exercise we did the other day, just because I had heard that there was one or two kids that felt like they were being bullied, and I just kind of had enough. I kept hearing it in the corner of my ear, shut up, or haha, you're stupid, or like, dude, you're so dumb, or like, stuff like that, or like curse words. And I'm like, guys, like, I can't control all of your language, but I want you to want to say kind things to people. And they said after, they were like, it feels so much better having everybody in the room be kind to one another, or at least neutral. We can just at least at a minimum be neutral.
Yeah.
If you can't say something kind, then you don't have to. It's like you don't have to really say anything. If you don't really like, if you don't feel like being friends with somebody, you don't have to be mean about it. You just be like, like, how you doing? Good morning. You don't have to be.
Yeah, keep it pushing. Yep. Agreed. And I think, that's part of our job too, is like to model that sort of thing for the kiddos that, look, I can't control you. I'm not looking to control you. However, because we share the same space, I got to hear the words that are coming out of your mouth. You got to hear the words coming out of mine, and vice versa for all the other kiddos and human beings in this space. Like, yeah, bare minimum, let's just be neutral. Good day, sir. Good day, ma'am. Like, I don't have to, it doesn't have to be like, I hate your guts. And if that were the case, then it's like, all right, you go to your respective corner, I'll go to my respective corner. We're here to learn math and science while we're in this space. Let's do that. Yeah, and if we can model that for our kids and let them know that, it doesn't all have to be like negative. Yeah. Then that's dope.
Straight up as a teacher, like just teaching in general, like this year has been more patience than I've ever had to exhibit, but it's also been a lesson in kindness for myself and empathy. And I find myself like some days I come home and I'm mad because I'm like, man, I feel disrespected, or I feel like they're not listening to me, and I can't get this work done. I beat myself up, and sometimes I'm like, man, like I will either roll over that feeling into the next day, like it's minutes back in the day on your cell phone, we just roll it over, or I forget to take a minute and like reset and be like, man, like, yeah, some things, are, some things hurt, some things are not the most respectful. But also
Hmm.
sometimes I'm dealing with, like, how do I say this? I feel like I deal with like a system that keeps us, like, students in one place for 8 hours a day, and I had the expectation that I don't think is correct of, like, having them have complete impulse control and having them have complete control over their emotions. And I'm like, I didn't do that when I was a kid, so why am I expecting
Yeah.
this?
Yep. I think a lot of educators forget what it was like to be the age of the kiddos that you're in front of. And I think, and because I've had this conversation too about, like, there's some admin who, for whatever reason, either were never in the classroom as teachers or have been out of the classroom so long that they too forget what it's like to be a teacher inside a classroom and deal with all the things that you mentioned. Because yeah, without that perspective of, like, being 11, 12, 13, maybe 14, like, there, some of your executive functions are not there yet. They're not developed. They're not mature. And to be able to know, like, when you hear your friend across the room say something, to be able to be like to keep that in and not just blurt out laughing is like, come on now. There's some of us during PDs where you'll hear a teammate say something, you're like, for real, Beth Ann, like, and so, like, like, to think that in a 12-year-old, when they hear someone go, sheesh, is going to be able to, like, control themselves and not want to, like, do the call and response is like, come on. And I think for us as teachers, like, we got to be able to recognize that. And in some moments, just, like, leverage it. You're like, all right, if you want, all right, kiddos, here's your 2 minutes or here's your 60 seconds. Go wild with it. But after it, then we got to come back to finish up X, Y, Z. Get it out. There are some times where it's just like, all right, there's enough. We just got to go outside, and I'll just do, like, just walk around campus. Just walk around campus, get some sunlight, let the sun hit your flesh and know that it's all good, and then come back and be like, all right, let's go at it now. And to be able to be flexible and recognize, like, all right, you're a little stir crazy right now. We got to get you out, or we have to redirect, or we gotta just take that information to be able to meet the kids where they're at to hopefully get them to where you want to get them. But yeah, again, I think it comes back to also to you. If you're not well rested, any little thing is going to set your fuse on. If you are well rested, both mentally, physically, all of that, then it's just like, come on. Come on. You're ready to go. It's like you're ready to knuck if you buck. Whereas if you're hungry, you're tired, like, everything is going to irritate you. In the same way for them too. Like, if they're not feeling the breakfast or they're not feeling the lunch, which at times will happen, like, if the kids haven't eaten, pray to the Most High, because it's going to be a rough day for them as well as you, of like, all right, what do you need, kiddo? What do you need? Let me make sure, let's see if I can get it to you so that you can at least be able to function on, like, a very minimal level. But I guess that's my next question to you is, like, knowing that that's so important, like, what sort of things are you doing to make sure that the joy stays with you?
Um, I I try to take time for myself, in true time, because I feel like when they go to recess, or I get my planning period, and let's say I'm done with planning or something like that, I just jump on my phone, and I used to think I was giving myself time, but I'm investing in someone else's life, not my own. I'm just observing other people's life. And while it kind of seems like a break for me, I'm not really enriching myself. So I started, walking around the school. Maybe I'll go to the yard, and I'll take a lap around the playground, or I'll call my mom and my dad, and I'll just have a conversation about life or the news or what's going on in the world. And even I try to extend that even when I get home. I think that beginning of the year, I would come home and once again jump on my phone or try to invest in someone else's life, or I would do things that I wouldn't meditate. I wouldn't be spiritual. I wouldn't pray. I wouldn't try to do something that was going to make me feel centered and whole.
Mm-hmm.
But I would just try to do something like fun that ends up being kind of pointless, just the stuff that's not important. And then it would end up with me like feeling like I didn't have enough time to do what I wanted to do, which leads to me staying up later and later, and then I wake up later and later. I'm rushing to work so that I get to school.
Yeah.
And I'm mega caffeinated and start the day off strong. And then the second cohort gets, I'm on edge. They say something and I'm like, I'm no longer redirecting. I'm just saying stop, instead of, whoa, let's figure out a way to coexist and let's have fun with this lesson. And how are you guys feeling?
Yeah.
So, like you said, if I don't take care of myself, I'm a different person, and that's not fair to them. So,
yeah, that self-care is super important, and it looks different for all of us. Yeah, sir, I'm rooting for you. Like I said, anything I can do to assist, to support, I got you. So I'll send over those folders and let you take a look at those plans, and whatever you do with them or not do with them is up to you. But I am rooting for you, man. I think you're an awesome, awesome educator who is ahead of the game in the sense of like is aware of yourself and the things that you need to do and stop doing in order to be a very effective educator and teacher to our kiddos. So to you, sir, I salute you.
Thank you.
Yeah. So to anyone who listens to this episode of the pod, of what I'm hearing is like Mr. Holloway just saying, one, take care of yourself, be mindful of like where you are. And if you are just like stop, take a moment for yourself and stop and be like, all right, if I'm only seeing the negatives right now, let me change my viewpoint of what good is happening, who is actually following directions, because it's never going to be 100%. There's always going to be someone like, so-and-so. Clarice, thank you very much for following directions. Jordan, thank you very much for having that pencil out and moving and working on whatever it is that we're working on. Thank you, Romeo, for being able to explain this to so-and-so, as opposed to, hey, so-and-so, stop doing this. Hey, so-and-so, stop doing that. Really shouting out the positive narration rather than the negative, and knowing that, hey, sometimes it's going to be me. It'll be like, you know what, kiddos? I'm having an off day today. My bad if it seems like I'm only focusing on the negatives, and being able to name that for the kids to be like, oh, snap. He actually said it out loud. He's a human being too, who's having a rough day. And then finally, that partnership with your parents and guardians to know that it's you two and then the kiddos, that we all want the same thing. We're all working towards the same goal. That's going to help you out tremendously. So I am Mr. Pierre. He's Mr. Holloway Harris. And this has been an episode of Chronicles of Mr. We thank you for listening, and we're out.